The Great Debate. Is Sunday or Saturday the biblical Sabbath? Question and answer section. Questions 51 to 70. 51. Pastor John. Didn't Jesus say in John 5:17 that his Father is always working, implying that the Sabbath is no longer binding? Father Michael. Jesus was explaining that God sustains life every day, not abolishing the Sabbath. If he was nullifying the Sabbath, why did he still observe it? 52. Pastor John. Isn't keeping the Sabbath legalistic? Father Michael. Obedience to God's commandments is not legalism, it is faithfulness. Jesus said, "If ye love me, keep my commandments." John 14:15. 53. Pastor John. Didn't Paul preach to Gentiles on Sunday in Acts 27? Father Michael. That was a farewell meeting held on Saturday night, which extended into Sunday. Jewish days start at sunset, so this was not a Sunday morning service. 54. Pastor John. Didn't Paul write in Romans 14:5 that every person should be convinced in their own mind about which day to observe? Father Michael. Paul was addressing personal fast days, not the Sabbath. He never suggested that God's commanded Sabbath was optional. 55. Pastor John. Isn't Sunday called the Christian Sabbath? Father Michael. Nowhere in the Bible is Sunday called the Sabbath. The term Christian Sabbath was invented by men, not God. 56. Pastor John. Didn't Jesus give the church authority to change the Sabbath? Father Michael. No. He gave authority to teach his commandments, Matthew 28:19-20, not alter them. 57. Pastor John. If the Sabbath is so important, why didn't Jesus emphasize it more? Father Michael. He did by keeping it and teaching its proper observance. Luke 4:16, Mark 2:27-28. 58. Pastor John. What about 1 Corinthians chapter 16:2, where Paul instructs believers to set aside money on the first day of the week? Father Michael. That refers to collecting funds at home for future delivery. It was not a Sunday worship service. 59. Pastor John. Didn't Jesus' resurrection change everything, including the Sabbath? Father Michael. The resurrection is crucial, but it did not change God's commandments. The Sabbath command remains intact. 60. Pastor John. Doesn't Mark 2:27-28 mean that the Sabbath is no longer necessary? Father Michael. No, it means the Sabbath is a blessing for all humanity, not just for the Jews. 61. Pastor John. If the Sabbath was changed, why didn't Jesus clarify this before ascending? Father Michael. Because he never changed it. Instead, he affirmed it. Matthew 24:20. 62. Pastor John. Didn't the apostles worship on the first day of the week? Father Michael. No biblical evidence supports that they replaced the Sabbath with Sunday worship. 63. Pastor John. Isn't Sunday the Lord's Day? Father Michael. Nowhere does Scripture call Sunday the Lord's Day. Isaiah 58:13 declares the Sabbath as the Lord's Day. 64. Pastor John. Didn't Constantine's decree simply confirm what Christians were already practicing? Father Michael. No. It enforced a change that had no biblical foundation. 65. Pastor John. If the Sabbath is so important, why do so many Christians keep Sunday? Father Michael. Tradition, not biblical authority, led to the shift. 66. Pastor John. Why did Paul meet with believers on Sundays? Father Michael. Paul met with believers every day, including Sabbaths, Acts 17:2. 67. Pastor John. Can't we worship on any day? Father Michael. We can, but God sanctified only the seventh day. 68. Pastor John. Did Jesus' death end the Sabbath? Father Michael. No, his death fulfilled sacrifices, not moral law. 69. Pastor John. Why do we need a specific day to rest? Father Michael. Because God sanctified it at creation. Genesis 2:3. 70. Pastor John. Didn't the Catholic Church admit to changing the Sabbath? Father Michael. Yes, and Protestants unwittingly follow Catholic tradition.